Hello, I'm Simulator Dirk and welcome back to Train Simulator for Freight February. And today, welcome aboard Service 4051, a Freightliner container service to Southampton. Loading of the train is complete and you are ready to depart. The train is booked on a 10 a.m. path. Set up the train and get going when you are ready. So let's turn on. Let's have a look outside. There's our Freightliner locomotive, and what better way to start a freight episode with a locomotive called Freightliner. So there it is there, all ready to go. All ready to rock and roll. So let's go back in the cab. Let's have a look at the cab. Very highly detailed, very modern looking locomotive here. So let's put our train into forward. Get rid of the AWS. A little bit of power. Brakes off. And we're underway. So our first waypoint is the Newport Up Relief in just under 7 miles. So 15 mile an hour speed limit at the moment. So we'll just take our time going through these points. We've got a longer train than I'm used to driving. I have no real life freight or locomotive experience. Watched many freight trains, gone past many freight trains, but I haven't driven one in real life. Now, we are a low priority freight service, so the fact that we don't have the signal up here is of no great surprise to us, or it shouldn't be of any great surprise to us. I can hear another train nearby. And there's another train, so we're going to have to wait for that anyway. So it's another freight train. So because we are a longer freight train, there's no... I've got to wait for that train anyway. That's a high-speed train. It looks like a GWR. There we go. That's sweet. And we'll get in the cab. Have a look at there's at the back of our train with the end of train marker, or some people know them as slang term as a battery operated guard, amongst others. So that's the back of our train. It's a long distance view of our train. Very foggy morning. And we'll go back in our train. We've got the green light, so let's go. So here we go. We've just got ourselves underway. And we'll take our brakes off for now. Alright, so we'll just build our speed up a little bit. And we're underway. So we'll need to wait for our train to clear the crossover before we get onto the main line. And if we scroll in and have a look at our display here, so we can see we're train 1 Zulu 66 according to this. We're going at 14, just under 14 miles an hour at the moment. Our reverser is in forward. This is my driver's display, so I'm the driver. That's my driver ID and train ID. And if we put a little bit of brake on, for instance, we've got a clear light, we just put a little bit of brake on. And we just took some brake off. Now if we power up, you can see on the left there, throttle 3 or notch 3. And we'll zoom out. So if we quickly look at what the speed limit is, 60 miles an hour. Whoops. Now that we've got going, we can power up. Eight notches of throttle, fairly standard on a freight engine. So there's our control. So we'll stay on this view for a little bit, and then we'll have a look. We'll have a look outside. So the little tone there warns us that we've got a green, or tells us that we've got a green signal coming up, so we're all good in that respect. There's our train. We'll go have a look at the other side. There we go. Have a look at old mate. He's wearing a tyre driving a freight train. What's going on there, old mate? What's going on? I'm a good looking rooster, aren't I? Oops, just looking at the back of our train and our containers. Well, so we're a reasonable size train. just past a freight train in the opposite direction. Alright, we should have a look in the cab. We're going at a great rate of knots. 60 miles an hour, that is our speed limit, so we will cut back a bit. We can probably coast for a while at this point. So we'll do that. So we'll just coast. So our first waypoint is the Newport Up Relief, which is in about 3 miles. And you can see simply just by throttling off there, our speed is reduced a little bit, which is what we wanted. We didn't necessarily want to have to put the brakes on at this point. Although, having said that, we do have a 40 mile an hour limit coming up. So we will start to put the brakes on now. So our speed is dropping nicely. So we can probably let the brakes off now, and our speed will reduce at a slower rate, but it'll still reduce. We didn't quite time it, so we'll drop the speed again. Puts a little bit of brake on, but not much. So we're right on our 40 mile an hour speed limit now. You know, in the real world, you'd know where the that's when you really got to be driving in the cab on your English trains. So there's our double yellow, so we'll slow down. We'll slow down a bit more because we don't necessarily know what the next signal is going to be. The Up Refuge at Newport is our waypoint. So we've got double yellows again. So quite happy just going at this sort of speed at the moment. Once the signals start going against us, well, we slow down, and there's no points to trying to stay at the speed limit at this stage, because we again have restricted signals for us. So we can increase speed a little bit. So we'll just go back to idle. Also very difficult to see in these foggy conditions at the best of times, even more so if you don't know where you're actually going. So we're being switched onto another truck. Looks like we have a green light ahead. The AWS hasn't recognised it yet because we haven't got to the balizers. That will indicate that we've got a green signal coming up, and then we can increase our speed. That'll be it coming up very shortly. The sunflower's gone out on the dash, and so we can increase our speed again because we do have a green signal ahead of us. I do like these modern locomotives where you've got a really good view out the front window. So what does our horn sound like? Not a massive fan. So we'll gradually increase the speed. We do have our waypoint coming up of the Newport up relief, so we don't know if they're going to hold us there or if we just keep going. So I'm not in any great rush to hit 40 miles an hour at the moment, which is the speed limit, not a speed suggestion or a target. So we've got a green signal coming up. That tone indicated that before we could even see it, which is awesome. I wish I had that. So we'll just go back to idle for a moment. There's another arriver train. We are on the South Wales network, by the way. So we're on the up relief line at Newport. So we got a timeliness bonus, which is awesome. Now our next waypoint is Severn Junction in 10 miles. We know now that we've got some... Whoops. Wrong lever. We know now that we can apply some more power. You have to do a lot of thinking ahead on the freight side in terms of powering, restricted signals, grades, because while the front of your train might be going down a hill, the back of your train, which could be a kilometre, kilometre and a half, 2 kilometres long, who knows how long it is, You've got to plan for that more than a passenger train that's like 200 meters long, for instance. So we'll just go back to idle. We are on a flat piece of track at the moment. So I don't think there's anything... Oh, we're seeing the back of another train. It looks like it's just in a siding, waiting to be picked up. See if we can see if there's anything about... No, there's nothing about the actual train on here. Oh, we can play with the horn. It's very, very detailed. Very detailed cab. As our throttle, so if we throttle up, reverser on the right, throttle there, brakes on the left for the locomotive and the train. Right, we'll just go back to idle because we have reached the 40-mile-an-hour limit now. We've gone back to idle, so there's another passenger train. Our engine RPM's gone back to 350 revolutions per minute. I would have thought that was rather low at idle. But here we are. I suppose one advantage of freight compared to passenger service is that you're not always stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. But also, having said that, there are long periods where you're just sitting in different places. Let's have a look at this upper screen because it's showing me some different information over here. It's monitoring the engine speed and the compressor speed of the locomotive. We will throttle up a little bit. So we've got just over 7 miles before our next waypoint, and all they basically are at the moment is waypoints that we're going via, not necessarily places we need to stop at, but they are waypoints. Uh-oh. So we'll just apply a little bit of power, not much. We're almost at the speed limit. We've got greens all the way, which has been good. Now that we've got a path, hopefully we should be able to stick to it now. We were on time at our first waypoint. You know, in reality, if you do run late, they will put you away somewhere, and because you don't want to be delaying other trains, you don't want to be delaying other trains. You know, especially with a freight train, you lose your path. It's very hard to get back on track. Unfortunately, there's no cruise control. So you just can't say to it, oh, I want you to do 40 miles an hour, so do 40 miles an hour. Fortunately, we're on a nice flat section of track, which is good. So interesting to notice the difference between the train here. It's idling, and then you apply a little bit of power. Wow, okay, that's freaky. And now that we're applying a little bit of power, you can actually see the exhaust. But if I cut it off, if I go back to idle, that very quickly disappears. A nice side view of our train. Just need some of these trees to get out of the way so I can get a clean shot. There we go. So our speed has dropped. We'll power again. Four miles to our waypoint, Severn Tunnel. I've never really, even as a kid, like I'd love watching freight trains go by, and wondered then and wondered now what it would be like to drive a locomotive, like a big coal train or a container train like this one or whatever, but got no real desire to do it as a career. Probably because I liked the idea of going home every night and not necessarily going, from one place to another and then staying in a hotel the next night, getting bugger all sleep and then going back, or continuing on the next day. And plus, driving locomotives is a lot harder, and just the amount of time that it takes to get up to speed, sort of thing. In terms of the learning curves, wouldn't be easy, even in modern locomotives these days. So I'm a little bit surprised we didn't have to slow down to rejoin this line, because we hit that crossover doing about 40 miles an hour. Oops, wrong one. Oh, we've got a 70 mile an hour speed zone coming up here, so it'll be interesting to see if we can actually reach that 70 miles an hour, which is about 110-ish kilometres an hour. So with the freight train, you have to make sure that your whole train is passed in most areas. You have to make sure that your train is past the 70 board before you can take advantage of it. And down the bottom there, looking at the heads-up display, is a perfect illustration of that. It won't actually indicate 70 miles an hour as the speed zone until the whole train passes it, which it's about to. So now we can open it up. Oh, it's going up to 75 here. Sweet. There we go. Oh, we're passing another Freightliner. That's cool. Okay, we're coming up to the tunnel now. 75 mile an hour zone coming up. Although we're nowhere near it at the moment. We're only just approaching 50. But we're at maximum revs, 1500 RPM the engine's going at. We are on time. Bristol Parkway up passenger loops, our next waypoint in 11.5 miles. So we can really stretch the legs here. I didn't see anything resembling a tunnel, did you? That's basically a bridge. This is more of a tunnel. And you can see, because of how long and heavy we are, it has taken ages to get up to the 75 mile an hour speed limit. But that's freight driving for you. The important thing now would be to get to this speed and be able to maintain it. And sometimes it might not be even worth trying to get up there, because around the corner you could have a 40 mile an hour limit. So there's no point of even going, 75. So we'll shut off here. So we'll just put a little bit of brake on just to control the speed. The last thing you want to do is spend a kilometre and a half getting up to near 75 miles an hour and then finding a 40 or 40 mile an hour and spending a lot of time getting up from 40 mile an hour to 75 mile an hour, and then around the corner there's another 45 board. So there's no point even trying, depending on the time it would take you to get up to speed. So we'll just apply a little bit of brake. Now this must have been the tunnel that they're actually talking about. Now we can just release the brake and just let it run a little bit. Though we are starting to go uphill, so we could increase the power again. Whoops, wrong way. Our speed has dropped quite a lot because it is a heavy grade, and I wasn't necessarily powering fully, but I am now. But it will still be a long climb to the top. Oh, 90 miles an hour now. I don't think we'll be able to make that. But we've had a nice clear run. Once we had to wait for the first train to pass us by when we were in the siding. But apart from that, we've had a nice run on the main line. Go that way. There we go, that's nice. Oh yeah. That looks like, those coal wagons look very similar to coal wagons that pass me every day. Train was nowhere near as long though. Now, I highly doubt that this train's going to get to 90 miles an hour. Let's see. Let's see what it can do. we're going uphill, which doesn't help, but it seems to be going quite well. I'm quite impressed by this train. In a totally unrelated piece of news, I found out the other day that there's a route under development from a group of rail fans in New Zealand, which will be rather interesting to see. Train Simulator on Twitter tweeted about it the other day, which is fantastic. It's a historical New Zealand route that's been under development for about 4 years. Not sure when it's coming out. It didn't say when it was coming out, but it is in active development. So I'll be keen to get my hands on that, and also run the diesel multiple unit railcar from New Zealand that I ran quite a few episodes ago now. So that's rather sweet. Now, as I mentioned, I don't know when the route's coming out, but for the fact that the people behind Train Simulator are even talking about it at this point is amazing. There hasn't been a lot outside Europe, the UK and America. There's been a little bit of Japanese stuff, a little bit of Chinese stuff, but not a lot. But to even have people working on a New Zealand route, me being an Australian, it's fantastic. There's not a lot of Australian New Zealand content for Train Simulator that I've found. So still going uphill through this massively long tunnel. Bristol Parkway up passenger loop is our next waypoint in about 2.5 miles. Doesn't necessarily mean that we'll be held at that loop. We've still got green lights, so that's great, and we're still got a 90-mile-an-hour speed limit. There is a 60 mile that's just come onto the screen now in just over half a mile. But having said that, we can go comfortably on that. We won't need to brake because we're only doing 40 miles an hour. Throttle's on. We're in 8 notch. Not much, it's a little bit of a hill still. Green light still for us. Oh, that must have been a HST stop as well. There was car markers for HSTs, high-speed trains. It has featured quite prominently on Simulator Dirk, SimulatorDirkGaming.com, and also Simulator Dirk on YouTube. So we're well in the 60-mile-an-hour zone now. There's a 25-mile-an-hour zone coming up, so now's probably a good time to kill the throttle. And we'll just let the speed drop by itself for the moment. And we're going to have to accelerate that process now because we know that we've got restricted signals coming up now. probably lose the brakes at this point. Our speed's dropped nicely. We'll see what happens when we get to this next signal. We're coming up to the top end of the Bristol Parkway up loop, so we may have to wait here. So we may have to wait here. No, we don't. So we'll just let the brakes off. We are coming up to a 25 mile an hour zone, which will be the crossover that we're about to go through. So we can apply a little bit of power to get some of our speed back. Train derailment? What? What train derailment? How do we derail? Oh, that's an AI collision. Oh, that's rubbish. That's absolute rubbish. I don't even know how we derailed. Wow, that's not how I wanted that to end. Anywho, I've been Simulator. You've been wonderful. Not a good way to end, but we didn't make it. Something derailed, something hit us. I don't know. Back end come off. I've got no idea. Couldn't actually see what was derailed. But we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that freight episode. We'll have another one next episode. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.